Oh, it's a pleasure to see you, Annette. Good morning.
All right, let's talk about the last month, September, and the kind of numbers we saw. How would you describe the market right now in Ottawa?
So, we're finally back to what, we don't like to use the word new normal yet. We have the kids back at school. Parents are, starting to see a little more of a routine. And so we're seeing the market, as we discussed the last time, kind of going back to what the norm was. And so, I often get people talking to me, in the grocery store and what's going on, what's going on. And so like we always like to talk about, we'll talk about some numbers. So when we look at the numbers back in September, we look at the Ottawa Real Estate Board stats, and what they have given us is that we sold just over 1,600 residential properties compared to September last year, which was over 2,300, which is a decrease of 31%.
That sounds
Now,
significant.
it does sound significant, and yet, if we go back and that to everything that we talk about for the last year, is we still have a lack of inventory. And so that is still remaining very much the same. We also look at the fact that the residential property class was 1,244, down from 29% a year ago, and the condo was also down 36% from last year. Now, everyone keeps hearing, down, down, down. I don't want that to resonate, that language, that verbiage to resonate, because if we look at the long-term 5-year average, it's looking like it's as usual, right? As per usual, the resale market in the early part of the month, because people are getting back to school, et cetera, September can be a little bit slow. Yet we are still dealing with a lack of inventory. And so when you look at these numbers, people have a tendency to panic. Yet I just strongly encourage people to say, we are back to a normal market
Hmm.
with a little bit of a lack of inventory, but do not panic because we are not dropping.
We were talking earlier this year about the volume of people all bidding, multiple offers, houses going 100 to $200,000 over asking. There was a house in my neighborhood in the Stittsville, Canada end of the city that sold in the last couple of weeks $27,000 under asking. And I thought, whoa, that's a major shift from where we were. And another home that I'm aware of that was in the higher bracket, in the million to $2 million, that sold hundreds of thousands of dollars less than what was originally they were asking for. So we're seeing a shift here, right? Or is this just a few isolated incidents? Or are we seeing those prices coming down where it's not way above where they're listing at?
Right. That's absolutely a great question, and I'm so thrilled that you asked it. Where I feel there is a little bit of a shift for sure in the fact that we're not seeing as many multiple offers, and yet with a good realtor, a realtor will educate the seller as to what the level of expectation is, and there is still a mindset with certain sellers, respectfully, that they still want the 100,000 over asking. Now, personally, I am still selling homes over asking in certain neighborhoods like Canada and Stittsville, and yet for the higher end homes, we still need to adjust our mindset. If you are looking to sell your home, have a reasonable conversation with your realtor and understand they are there to help you and they will guide you and look at the sales around you. There are there are sellers out there, and possibly Annette, the ones that you referred to, where they're like, no, I just want the 100,000 over asking, and that should be my level of expectation. Where right now, when I speak to my sellers, we have an honest conversation about what they can what they can expect, and really be honest with them about where the market is right now.
Question coming in from Dennis. Dennis asks, will the rates go down or should we wait to buy a home? What do you think?
It's a great question, and we get asked that all the time. You know, it sounds like, you know, Dennis, this may be your first home. And so I always encourage people, if they're currently renting, you're filling, you know, someone else's pocket. We do not expect the market to go down, and encourage you to talk to a mortgage broker. I always strongly recommend mortgage brokers to advise you as to where your financial situation is. Right now, mortgages are at a record low, and you know, as they say, money is really cheap right now. And so, depending on your situation, I would really want you to sit down with a mortgage advisor and then your realtor and create that plan so that you have the proper down payment and that your monthly payments are manageable to you. Because as we say, you know, I never want anyone to be house poor when they purchase with us. So we always work well within their budget. So it's a great question, but we don't see the market dropping anytime soon, if ever.
Let's talk fall maintenance on your home, Colleen, the kind of things that you should do to take care of your biggest investment. Whether or not you plan to sell it in the near future or not, these are the kind of things that can really protect the investment you've made and probably the longevity of some of the items we're going to talk about. What are some of the things at this time of year we need to do to manage the house?
And that's a great question, because I want people to take care of their home. As you mentioned, it is their largest investment. And right now is a time before the snow falls. Unfortunately, snow is that horrible word that we all dread. At least personally, I do. And so I want you to take care of your home, especially if you are thinking of selling in the near future. It's definitely items that will help protect your investment. So walk around your house, do a perimeter check. Do you have a fence that needs fixing? Because you can't fix it once the ground is frozen. So you might want to look at that. You also might want to look at your eaves troughs. There are eaves trough problems all the time when we are doing home inspections. It is something that reoccurs constantly. So with your eaves trough, make sure that they're clear and clean. Also, there are two types of downspouts with homes. Ones that just drop away from the house and ones that go into your weeping tile. So the ones that just drop down onto the ground, please make sure that they are well away from the house. They should be 6 to 8 feet away from your house to make sure that you don't have any water situations in your basement. If you have the eaves troughs and your downspouts going directly into your weeping tile, please also note that in the winter, they do freeze. And so you may want, before the cold weather sets, you might want to dislocate that particular pipe and then again put it away from the house so that you don't have any water damage. Because once our ground is frozen and once you have water in your basement, you have some issues for sure.
What are some of the other things that you would consider in terms of like the furnace, the windows, some of the parts of the house that maybe need to go through a bit of a change?
Absolutely. So there's main components of the house that we call maintenance. I know that when talking to sellers, they see it as upgrades, but we need to maintain the rock components of our home, our roof, our furnace, our windows. So depending on if you are selling next year or not, these are components that really need to be watched for. Do you have broken window seals? It is not the end of the world. Yet if you have older windows that aren't broken, and you might have wood windows. And by the way, historically, people have said, you know, they don't like wood windows. Wood windows actually last longer than vinyl windows. You just have to maintain them. So if you have a wood-clad window, make sure that you've done all the caulking around it. Get out some extra paint and paint those windows before the ice, the ice settles on them, because that's where your seals will break. We talk about the furnace. Your furnace should be like every like your carbon monoxide and everything else. Every 6 months you need to have your furnace looked at. So do you have a service commitment on your furnace? Did you change your filter recently? I know that I have some stray cats due to COVID here, and I'm changing my filter a lot more. And truth be known, actually cheaper filters work just as good as the more expensive ones. And it just makes your life easier. You don't feel so bad if you change them out. So if you haven't changed out your furnace filter, now's the time to have your furnace looked at, call a professional, have it recorded, and change out that filter. Same as your fire alarms and your carbon monoxide alarms.
Yeah.
You should be changing the batteries right now.
Market value of the home. Should a home built in the 1980s, which is not updated or renovated, be valued the same as a new home?
That is a great question. And Mike, I could talk your ear off for at least a couple of hours on that one. So, an older home, we do have a tendency to say they don't build them like the old days. So, older neighborhoods for sure hold their value. They have a tendency to have larger lots and great traditional floor plans. You have to connect though, compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges, right? If you have a new home, let's say maybe what we refer to as an infill in an older neighborhood, absolutely not. You can't really compare them. You need a realtor, obviously, to understand the market in that particular neighborhood. I grew up in Old Nepean, and, my parents' home would be valued a lot differently than a newer home in Canada that Annette referred to. Yet we had bigger yards, we had trees. So you have to compare when I do a market evaluation, and when any good realtor does a market evaluation, you're looking at the upgrades, you're looking at the possibly finished basement, you're looking at the number of bedrooms, you're also looking at potential in the neighborhoods. People are going to the older neighborhoods because we love the lots and we love the ability to finish that home the way that we want to. But that is a marketing plan for your realtor to create so that we get higher traffic in an older home versus a newer home, assuming that Mike is referring to his home as the older home. But they are very different. You can't really compare a 1980s home to a 2020 home. You can't.
All right. I can see how this conversation could be a long one because there's, like you said, Colleen, a lot at play and a lot to consider. I want to point out something that is really important this time of year because, as we know in Ottawa, we could be just a few weeks away from snow, even on a day where we're going to hit 22. That being said, if selling your home is in the future, in the early days of spring next year into March and April, and we often still have snow on the ground, what do people need to do for those pictures outside right now? Get them ready, right? Get them going, because if they're looking to sell, how much of a difference can that make if they have those outdoor pictures for when it's beautiful like now?
Absolutely. So we are literally doing that on my team right now. If you are considering selling or you're not even sure, but it could be a potential thought, right? You're looking to downsell. Personally, I just became an empty nester, tears in my eyes and everything. Yet we've taken summer photos. All the clients that I know that are going to be selling in the spring market, I know to take their photos just in case that we still have late snow. If you have incredible landscaping, definitely make sure that you have some photos to show that landscaping, because there's also, when you have snow, you can't show off all that investment, time, and energy in that beautiful backyard. The other thing that we often encourage people to do, if you have a pool, I want to talk about that backyard. So the backyard, if your backyard is the oasis, you have to do a couple of things. Definitely get those professional photos done. Hire your realtor now and get those professional photos done. The other thing I want you to do is close your pool professionally. So I know for a lot of people, including myself, closing a pool is actually not difficult. And a lot of people do it themselves. And that's fine. Yet, when you sell your home before your pool is open, that agent, that realtor, that buyer may be saying, where is the professional certificate? Because I'm really concerned because they're going to have to open it and they want to make sure that it was done well.
Good
So
point.
that's a really big thing. And again, we talk about water all the time. Please make sure in the next near future, even though we're having a great fall, before we go below freezing, a lot of people didn't even realize that their garden hoses need to be turned off.
Right.
Drain your hoses, etc. So if you are looking to sell in the near future or possibly February, March, and
Yeah.
you have a beautiful backyard, show it off and make sure that you prepped for it.
All right, Colleen, great advice as always and a great chat today about the housing market. There's all Colleen's information up on your